Hey everybody, this is Howie and Beastmode on the Howie and Beastmode podcast, focusing as always on business, strategy, growth, and execution. Howie, thanks so much for diving in today. What are we going to focus on today?
Yeah, today we're going to focus on something that's always a big key player on your heart, and I know something that I know resonates really well with me, and that's courage. It takes a lot of courage to step out in business. It takes a lot of courage, as we've talked about in episode 2, talking about feedback. And so I just want to bounce it over to you to see what's on your heart right now, and we're just going to have a quick hit today.
Great. Let's do a quick hit. You know, right now, there's a lot of anxiety in the air with what's happening with coronavirus, with COVID-19. And so there's a lot of fear in the air. You know, there's a lot of sales professionals that we've already seen gotten laid off. There's a lot of restaurant workers that have gotten laid off as well. The challenge is that they have real reasons to be afraid right now. But in fact, if they let that dominate them, then it might, paralyze them from taking action. And so I think, I just wanted to articulate, a little bit of a thought process about, courage and the forced courage and also forcing action against goals in the face of courage. Part of my story is that, I had, quite a difficult, grade school, high school, and early part of college. And then I dropped out of college. And so I completely felt, just totally stupid for, until I was in my 30s, honestly. And that was a lie, but it's a lie that I believed, and it paralyzed my courage. So whatever your particular burden is, maybe it's a real physical burden where you have lost a job, or you're thinking you may lose a job, or you've got a personal, situation like mine where, it saps your courage and it saps your confidence. What I did, during that period of time was I really put my nose to the grindstone, and I worked hard, and I used hustle to overcome a confidence problem. And I used hustle to overcome fear in many, many ways. So I just want to encourage people right now to not sit there paralyzed with what happened to you, and not sit there paralyzed with self-doubt or a feeling of failure, but instead create an action plan. Because if you go attack an action plan, it's a whole lot better than, sitting on the couch completely, torturing yourself and feeling bad. So I really do encourage massive action as one way to combat courage or to create courage through action. And again, it worked for me. And over time, I still have to go back to that sort of that forced action. But it really does help to just throw massive effort and hard work at your problems. It's something that I've done. Obviously, Beast Mode, you've been through a lot of challenges too. How have you faced those fears, and how have you deployed courage in situations?
Yeah, courage is a big deal to me. I focus a lot of times on the personal courage. So outside of business, there's a lot of courage that it takes every day just to stand up for what you believe in, to do work the right way, to operate yourself, with integrity. It takes courage to do those things. And so I just want to, give everybody who's operating with courage today a big, just congratulations, but at the end of the day, I was just having a thought while you were talking, I think if we polled the room, people listening, and said, hey, would you like some courage? I think everybody would raise their hand. Well, you know what? You don't get to implement courage unless you're in a difficult situation, So the opportunity to grow courage, to build courage, to walk out courage comes in difficult situations. And it's no different than, I think most people would say, they want to be joyous, well, a lot of times to be joyous, it really resonates, and really where you build that joy is walking through great sorrow and still having that joy with you. So I know that for me, I always focus on a purpose. And so there's a purpose for every moment. And so for us, there's an opportunity for us as business owners and collaborators and just professionals there could be a strong spirit of just courage that's just flowing around social media, just in our communities, in our families, in our workplaces. And so I'm the encourage word. I love that word. There's a great Bible scripture where it talks about David encouraged himself. Encouraging really means that you have to put it in you. It's not something you go pick up at the grocery store. Sometimes you just got to really dig down. Same thing with grit. People want to be gritty. They want to be tenacious. Well, whenever there's opportunities to be gritty or tenacious, it's generally in what people would think is a negative circumstance.
That's good. And, one of the offers that I wanted to make on today's podcast actually is that if anybody will email us or will leave us comments, we're happy to, encourage them, one-on-one, personally, possibly, we might even have a situation where we'd invite you on and discuss, what's happening and provide some live encouragement to you. But more than happy, if you post to the comments, or if you send us an email, that we're happy to provide some encouragement to you, because courage is a wonderful thing to give as well. And, we talk about encouragement. David did encourage himself in the Lord. He put courage in. And so we're happy to help put courage into you guys, most definitely. There's actually it's interesting. It's kind of an interesting business problem, courage. You wouldn't necessarily think of courage initially as a business problem, but as a personal problem. But in fact, I have a situation at work right now where there's a particular account that there's a personality involved in the account that is very unfriendly, and they're hindering progress. And so some other individuals are trying to make a difference and trying to make a change, but they're encountering this particular resistance and this particular person who is a human obstacle. And so, these individuals who are trying to advocate for change, are, frankly going to have to deploy that courage to sort of, you can do it, obviously with care, and you don't have to be a jerk back to someone. But, you certainly, do have to sort of deploy courage in order to make change, because, change is hard, and then people who are resistant to change can be hard to deal with. So I'm seeing it right now where it's actually slowing down progress, during this difficult time, because of that potential issue with conflict and so forth. So courage is actually quite a challenge that we have to tackle in a business sense. If you don't have courage, so one of the issues that I've encountered, through my sales career, I've been in sales management since 2001. I did have a little stint as in outside sales later on in that, but mostly sales management since 2001. And I've actually seen a couple different attitudes, and they're both true. One attitude is that it won't work, or it's it's a negative approach, or we haven't tried that before, or we did try that and it didn't work. And that's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they obviously won't try the new thing if they tried it before, or if they doubt that it's going to work or whatever. So they don't have the courage to face that new idea, or to try something maybe out of the box, right? The other personality, and it's a little more rare, but there's a lot of it out there too, is kind of the optimist. And there's very little downside to being an optimist from what I've seen. And I've seen a lot of people, a lot of personalities, but the optimist tends to try the new thing. They tend to retry something that maybe didn't quite work, but in a different way. They think of it a different way. They'll ask again, they'll try again, they'll persist. There's just a little bit more of a, trying the fourth and fifth time with that personality who sort of has the courage. And I don't know what it is. It's kind of a blend of sort of like optimism that fuels the courage or something. You know what I mean? It's not just like raw, like courage running into bullets. It's more like courage because I see potential, or courage, in my case, with my self-doubt that I faced for years and years, and occasionally will still face it. It's almost like courage out of necessity to take care of my family, kind of thing, right? So you do kind of have to have a why at the base of courage, or else I'm not sure how long raw courage without a reason can last. If you guys can pull it off, that is great. But usually I think there's maybe an optimism that can help fuel that, or a passion. Or Jordan, you talk a lot, or Beastmode, you talk a lot about purpose, which I really honor you for, and that drives you a lot and helps you produce courage, so it's not usually raw, meaningless courage. It's usually courage from a place of positivity or optimism, or purpose or necessity.
Courage is one of those things that I actually speak on every single week. I lead another group at Gateway that deals directly with that. It talks about purposes, missions, and visions in life, and goals and things like that, and obtaining them, and facing rejection, and understanding that rejection is no bearing on success. Every day waking up and walking with integrity, and maybe you don't get any deals done, that's a successful day. Judging success based upon having courage to do the right thing, that's a successful day. And then ultimately what happens is, over time, you will have sales. Business will come. But understanding that, if I focus on walking out my purpose, if that's my goal for success, then my courage is shifted, and I'm focusing on that aspect. I actually receive, we've talked about that, I think maybe episode 3, where we talked about receiving fuel. When you walk in courage, you're actually refueling. Not only are you encouraging yourself and others, but you're refueling. It's an energy that provides. Same thing with love. When you walk in love, you're not only refueling yourself, but you're going to refuel others. And so courage is one of those things that it's very difficult to just maintain, like you said. Otherwise, it shifts into fight or flight, and that's draining. You can't operate like that, as you mentioned. But whenever you do have a clear why, and saying, I'm being courageous because of this, I'm not doing this task, or I am doing this task because of this, then it's sustainable. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, like you mentioned grit earlier too. Grit's a really big deal. I think, what I'd like to encourage everybody today is to write down, what is it you're afraid of? What's the possibility that something could go wrong? Write that down, and then, get it on paper, and then make sure you write it down completely. And now we have an aspect of this podcast that we'll touch on faith from time to time. So what I would do is I would pray about that. If you don't want to do that, totally cool.
Meditate.
Meditate's good. I've had some value of just getting it out of me too, just writing it down, even looking at it. But it's a whole lot smaller. But if you write it down, I think that's a good start. And then I think if you attempt to face that situation, and you attempt to make a plan about that, and face that, and go after that, what Jordan B. Peterson says is, deal with the dragon while it's under the rug, meaning when it's small. So if you face it, then you'll grow, and the fear will shrink. But if you don't deploy courage, then it will grow and you will shrink. Literally, for your own survival and for your own growth in career and personal, you have to force that courage to happen and address that, so that it will shrink and you will grow.
Have you thought about maybe the other side of that exercise, where you spoke on saying, write down what you're afraid of and what could go wrong, right? And then, but what about finishing? Maybe not finishing, because I think you completed your thought. I think I just have a separate one. But
Good.
maybe saying something along the lines of, if this goes wrong and I don't try, because sometimes we focus on, here's the obstacle in the way. This is why I'm scared. That's really scary. That's why I'm not doing it. But then also focusing on, if I don't do this, this is what can happen too, is not doing this, which is more scary. The apathy, complacency of not stepping up to courage and sweeping it under the rug, or addressing it. Which one am I more afraid of?
So adding to your writing project, essentially sort of like, here's the consequences if I let this beat me.
Yeah, here's the consequences if I attempt and fail. Here's the consequences if I do nothing.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
when you try something and you do fail, do you feel...
Why did I try it?
Do you feel bad though do you feel worse when you see a big problem and you do not face it? Or do you feel worse when you do see a big problem, but you at least try to face it and then you fail? which one is worse to you?
Neither. It's not to sweep your question, but if my reason for attempting is I had a clear method and I failed, I'm just fine because I had a clear method for why I was attempting it, and attempting it was really my success. What pass or fail, is
That's
really
what I think.
secondary. Now
Yeah.
on the other spectrum, if I'm successful in a task and I'm only measuring success and there's no why behind it, then there's a problem for me. So for me, it again, I talk on purpose every single episode, but it's because that's my filter. I have to filter things through that.
That's
And
good.
so if I fail, that's okay. I mean, I fail every day. Let's be real. But again, am I trying to fulfill my purpose? Yes, that's okay. Then I'm as successful at doing that. My success is geared on trying to fulfill my purpose, not on the result, And so,
See, I think for me, if I sat on the couch cowering in fear over whatever I won't be courageous about, I think I would feel worse about that than if I saw this, this specter or this demon or this situation. And, if I faced that situation and I failed, I actually would feel proud of myself because I tried and I literally gave it my best, and I didn't make it work, but I faced my fear. And so I think there is some value in growth because it shrunk and I grew as far as my personality, but also for example, I had a website that gloriously failed, like half my retirement, like 3 or more years, really probably 4 years of my life gone. But a friend of mine, and it failed, but a friend of mine said, you tried it. And how many people have sat around saying, well, I had this idea, what I mean? And so I do have the satisfaction of learning through that failure, and learning that failure isn't the end anyway. And failure is kind of part of the process and part of the game that we're supposed to be in. So I think I would feel better. And you're saying a very similar thing. So they're very complementary, but I feel like I feel better if I try when I'm afraid and I try, because you're not going to beat me, because I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to try. And I just don't let it be that like I beat myself because I was too scared.
Yeah. I guess my only follow up to that would be, and again, we're talking apples and pears here. So they're very close. For me is there are times where I don't try for things. And the reason why I don't try is because it doesn't pass my filter. And so failing that task or failing that thing, something that maybe I could do, or that I do have courage to face, it actually takes more courage to not do it, because that maybe the task doesn't belong to me. Maybe that specific instance is not mine. And so sometimes I'm in that same perspective with you, although I am right there with you, though, that I would rather, if it does fit through my filter, if it does pass that test, I would rather attempt it and go down swinging with all my might and lose than to stand there and say, I wonder what would happen. I wonder if I could have done that. I wonder, that would eat me up. Which again, I'm walking that right now, personally, professionally. I'm walking through that all the time, and people, let me talk to everybody. People every day are going to tell you to quit something, that you should have stopped doing this. You should have left that relationship. You should have given up on that sale, whatever it is. And every day you get a choice to be courageous and say, no, I know exactly how I'm going to approach this, and I'm going to achieve this, or I'm going to fail trying. And there's nothing wrong with that.
You're right. It is little thing, you wonder when someone says, hey, I've lived a life where I've had a lot of fear, and I think, I recently saw that, situation in a particular friend of mine, and it kind of broke my heart, actually, to be honest with you. But I'm like, how did that happen? How did a lifetime of fear happen? And I think obviously friendships can help strengthen our courage. I think surrounding us with people who can speak into our lives, those kinds of things are really big. You and I would all obviously point to faith as well. The only thing I'll add to, I think, our dialogue, unless something else pops up, and you're welcome to add some more, but all I would add to the writing exercise is, and I've done part of it. So I have lived the first part is writing down what I'm afraid of, or in my case, there might've been some things I was afraid of, or some things that were really bothering me. I think the exercise has worked well in general, right? Write down the negative is the point. So write down the negative in order to be able to face it. You added to that, write down the consequences of not facing it, which I thought was really cool. And then as we develop this during this podcast, the only other thing I can think of that would be maybe useful to add to the writing exercise, and you probably need about an hour to do this at this point. It's kind of a big deal now. But I think if you added, what are the benefits of trying, what are the benefits if I succeed, but even if I don't succeed, what are the benefits of trying?
Sure. Yeah, no, 100%. If you're able to shoot that goal, again, for me personally, I don't want to be negatively fear-based to where basically I'm scaring myself into doing a tactic. Now there is that in the beginning, like we talked about, fear of doing something versus fear of not doing something. One of them's going to win and one of them's greater, and you got to choose. But at the end of the day, you can say, if I fail doing this, will I be one step closer to my goal? Answer most likely is yes. As we've talked about multiple times, failing is actually so much better. The reward of failing, trying, the reward on that is so much greater than watching and doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and two, I think it's important for people to understand that fear is a liar because it's an exaggerated view of a negative future that prophesies about your life. So are you seriously going to let some little, thought process, people say, they wrestle with their demons, right? Are you going to let your demons, basically talk to you about your future? Are you serious? Are you seriously going to let a negative thought about a possible negative, bleak future, which may never be, and 95%, they say about 95% of fears don't happen, right? Are you seriously going to be dominated by that? Or are you going to, use some of these strategies, use the friendships, use the writing exercise, use the prayer? We haven't actually said it, but, using prayer is what Beastmode and I would do as well. Those are three of the ideas. And then also the massive effort and trying. And, using the Jordan B. Peterson approach of dealing with the dragon while it's under the rug versus, so you basically, by dealing with it, you grow and it shrinks versus it continues to grow and you shrink. So those are, maybe 5 things that we've talked about, but we do care about you guys a lot. We do this for fun. We do this to make a difference. And we just do this as a really a fun hobby, honestly, too. But if you guys have, specific areas that you could use some encouragement on, Beastmode, where should they email us? Because email is easy.
Yeah, probably the easiest thing they can do is they can message us on Facebook at our Facebook page.
Okay. Okay.
They're more than happy
That's
to reach
a
out.
good idea.
Yeah, they're more than happy to reach out to us individually on our LinkedIn's and Twitters and Instagrams and things like that. Or you can comment wherever you see this. If you see it on Apple or you see it, just feel free to comment anywhere. Now, I'll close with this, and I'll say, if you do need encouragement, sometimes just reaching out to anybody. I mean, I think we all know somebody. And again, I try to live a life that is that somebody. I want everybody to know that if you need somebody on your side, I'm your Huckleberry. I'll be that guy. Because I know for a decade, I needed somebody like that. And so if anybody listening needs that, just somebody to listen, to speak into, 100%. Speak over, partner with you, I'll be in agreement with you. Let's see you overcome. Let's see you get victorious in whatever it is and face your fear. Howie, it's been truly a pleasure.
Enjoyed
always,
it,
man. Phil, I hope you feel better, and I look forward to next week when we catch up again.
Thanks a lot.
Be well.